Ethan and I used to talk about everything, the smallest things, like what we had for lunch, to the bigger ones, like our plans for the future. I would curl up next to him on the couch, and we would share pieces of our day, our thoughts, our fears. Now, it was as if the words had vanished, leaving a void that I could not quite understand. At first, I thought it was work. He had been busy, really busy actually, and I understood that. His promotion had brought new pressures, long hours, and late-night phone calls. But even when we were together, he was not really there. His touch was gone too. When I tried to reach out for him, to kiss him, he would pull away with some excuse. He was tired. He had a headache. There was always something. I could not remember the last time he had looked at me the way he used to. The first sign was the smell. One evening, as I was folding laundry, I caught a scent on his shirt. It was subtle, like a perfume, but it was not mine. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe it was someone at work. Maybe it was nothing. But once the thought planted itself, it was impossible to get rid of it. I started noticing other things. His phone, always face down, the way he left the room to take calls, text messages late at night that he never explained. When I asked him about it, he would laugh it off, say it was just work, or worse, he would get defensive. "Why are you being so paranoid?" he would ask, and I would feel small, embarrassed for even asking. He made me feel like I was imagining it all. But then came the nights when I waited for him, laying in bed, nude, hoping that maybe tonight would be different. That maybe tonight he would reach for me the way he used to. I lay there, feeling vulnerable, exposed, waiting for something that never came. He would slip into bed, turn away from me, and say goodnight, his voice flat and empty. I tried to ignore it. I told myself he was stressed. I made excuses for him, just as I had done for weeks. But the distance between us grew larger, and I could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. One afternoon, I met my friend Lisa for coffee. We sat by the window of the cafe, and I could not hold it in anymore. "He has been different," I said quietly, stirring my cup, watching the milk swirl into the coffee. "He does not touch me. He does not talk to me. I think something is going on." Lisa gave me a long look, her brow furrowed with concern. "Have you talked to him about it?" "I tried," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He just gets defensive. Like I am accusing him of something." "Maybe you are not wrong to be suspicious," she said gently, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You deserve to know the truth." That night, I could not take it anymore. I had to know. While Ethan was in the shower, I took his phone. I knew it was wrong, but the uncertainty was eating me alive. My hands shook as I scrolled through his messages, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it. Her name was Emily. The texts were innocent at first, work-related mostly, but then they grew more personal. "I had such a great time with you today," one read. "I cannot stop thinking about our conversation." Another, "You make me feel so alive." I felt the blood drain from my face. My stomach twisted into knots as I scrolled further, finding messages that were far more intimate than I could have imagined. There were no explicit words, but the intent was clear. I could see it in the way they flirted, the way they shared things he no longer shared with me. I put the phone down, my heart racing, my mind spinning. This was it. The truth I had been avoiding, the truth that I had been too afraid to face. He was having an affair, maybe not physically, but emotionally. Emotionally, he was already gone. When Ethan came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed, his phone in my hand. He froze, his expression unreadable. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling as I held up the phone. "Who is Emily?" His face paled, and for a moment I thought he might deny it. But then he sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. "It is not what you think," he said, but there was no conviction in his voice. "What is it then?" I demanded, my voice growing louder, fueled by weeks of suspicion, of feeling invisible. "Because it sure looks like you have been lying to me." He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. "I have not slept with her," he said quietly. We talk. That is all. I was going through a rough time at work, and she was there. She listened. I did not mean for it to get this far." I felt a wave of anger wash over me. "You did not mean for it to get this far? Ethan, you have been avoiding me for weeks. You stopped touching me. You stopped talking to me. You shut me out. And now you expect me to believe this is just about talking?" He looked up at me, his eyes filled with guilt. "I know I messed up," he said softly. "But it was never about her. It was about Us. Something between us was missing, and I did not know how to fix it. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "So this is my fault?" I asked, my voice cracking with disbelief. "No," he said quickly, reaching for me, but I pulled away. "No, that is not what I meant. I am sorry. I do not know what happened to us." I stood there, shaking, torn between the pain of betrayal and the desperate need to understand. "What are you gonna do?" I asked, my voice barely audible. He looked at me, his face a mix of regret and uncertainty. "I do not know," he said, and that was when I realized that the distance between us was no longer something that could be fixed with words. In the days that followed, I thought about everything. Every moment where I had felt that shift, every time he had pulled away, every excuse I had made for him, it all came together in a painful clarity. It was not just Emily. It was us. We had been drifting apart for longer than I wanted to admit, and now, standing on the edge of this precipice, I could see that it had been coming all along. But the twist, the part I never saw coming, was not just that he had betrayed me, or that our relationship had unraveled in ways I could not control. It was that, deep down, I had already known. Long before I found the texts, long before the silence became unbearable, I had felt it. And I had ignored it. Because sometimes the truth is harder to face than the lies we tell ourselves to keep going. As I sat alone in the quiet of our bedroom, I realized that maybe the betrayal was not just his. Maybe, in some ways, it was mine too. I had betrayed myself by not listening, by not speaking up sooner, by pretending that everything was fine, even when I knew it was not. The silence between us had been growing for a long time, and now there was nothing left to say.